do ba 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 do.
Today, folks, two of my favorite worlds just collided, and of course, that is the VR gaming world and space travel, baby. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg has been going on a bit of a rampage to try and revitalize the stock as he partnered with Neil deGrasse Tyson on a podcast to dive down into the VR world and experience the James Webb Telescope photos in 3D virtual space. And they're partnering with rocket ship launches to bring real-time VR experiences to the new space travel sector that is just exploding. And I think a lot of this comes around the point of insane negativity. Facebook has always had a real big optics problem, and it has absolutely devastated the stock. And I kind of want to give you the positive side perspective. I currently don't hold Facebook, but a lot of my family does, and I have personal friends that are actually buying it right now because of how insanely cheap the value is on this company. Now, again, guys, we're talking about the cheapest company on the S&P top 10. It is down 54%, and it's probably the most devastated stock that sits in these massive market cap worlds, currently worth about $430 billion. But let's talk about the negativity, because me, Kevin, kind of highlighted a lot of what I am just generally hearing across the spectrum. And I want to kind of point out some of the facts here, and then obviously just take a look at some of the numbers nobody's talking about, just to kind of give you that positive light perspective, so you can kind of take the bull and bear case and then decide for yourself if Facebook's truly a buy.
Which problems at Facebook could be running deep. First, they just had their first ever revenue decline, and they've lowered their earnings guidance by 10%. That comes as Mark Zuckerberg says the economy is worse than it was last quarter. And this is leading a lot of folks to wonder, wait a minute, is it actually the economy that's getting it worse? Or is it Facebook that's losing it? Mark Zuckerberg thinks the future is augmented reality and the metaverse, yet markets don't agree. So far, their augmented reality company, Reality Labs, lost $2.8 billion versus making $452 million. That's bad. And their ad pricing has declined 14%, which means they're cramming in more ads while getting less user engagement. Combined with lower forecasts, yikes, Facebook could be a red flag for the economy, or it's the sign of a failing business. They cut expenses by $1 billion, and they're still promising a new VR headset at the end of the year, but I don't know if this is a company I want to invest in.
First and foremost, when that VR headset drops, I'm going to be the first person to buy it. I will support Facebook until their dying breath if they can expand this VR universe that I've fallen so deeply in love with. I'm a nerd. I know. I get it, guys. But let's talk about some of the negativity here, because for me, Kevin, a guy that used to buy some of the most speculative companies, I'm really surprised that he didn't talk about valuation with Facebook and some of the positive stuff that came out of this earnings that I want to highlight here. Because, yeah, we're in a recessionary period. The first thing people do in recessions is stop ad spending. So we're seeing that with Google, Facebook, obviously, right? But the problem is when this recessionary period is over, ad spending comes back. Where are people going to go? Well, where the most users are, where the most eyeballs are. And yeah, their total revenue went from 29 billion to 28 billion. We're seeing some declines. They're trying to cut operating expenses, things of that nature, just to keep the bottom line looking good, which again, we're talking about billions and billions of dollars. I mean, their net income was $6.6 billion. I mean, we're not talking about a small net income here, right? But take a look at this, because Facebook's monthly active users were 2.93 billion as of June 30th, 2022. And that is an increase of 1%. Their underlying business here, guys, is still actually growing. And this is very hard to wrap your head around, because a lot of people think that their users' growth is going to start to stagnate and it's going to lead to some of the decline in Facebook's possible growth in the future. But you have to understand there are 8 billion people on this planet, and Facebook has 3 billion users here worldwide. That is literally just almost over 1/3 of the entire population. It's probably everyone that even has internet with Instagram, WhatsApp, and their main Facebook platform, right? And when you take a look at WhatsApp, guys, the growth of WhatsApp leading up to 2021, I couldn't really find any other data. I'll have to dig a little deeper. I might have slacked on this a little bit, but even still, their WhatsApp user growth has just been intense. It's been insane. I love Facebook Marketplace. I love a lot of aspects about Facebook's business here. So the thing you really kind of got to conclude here is, do you think what we're seeing is temporary, or do you think it's going to be a long-term, trend where we're going to see continued declines, even though their users are still actively involved in these platforms, right? So this is kind of what you got to wrap your head around when it comes to Mark Zuckerberg, because most people just do not like this guy. I know the guy gets the most memes, hate politically. Google seems to slide under the radar when it comes to a lot of this, but let me show you some of the highlights here on what I think the future of Facebook's going to look like, why I don't think VR is close to being dead, and I'll show you a few highlights because I am such a space nerd. And now that I can experience a lot of this stuff in VR, it's so mesmerizing to me. But take a quick listen.
Some others off to the thing. So what's going on here is We have the deepest image ever taken of the universe. And notice a bunch of, everything else that's not those spiky things is an entire galaxy, such as the Milky Way, containing hundreds of billions of stars. And we see them out to the farthest reaches of the universe. And you see these arclets that form a circle around the central region. There's a galaxy cluster right in the middle, which has a huge gravitational field, and those curved arclets are galaxies in the background, near the beginning of the universe, and their light has been distorted by the gravitational field of this cluster. And Einstein first described the fact that if you have a lot of gravity, it'll distort the very fabric of the space-time continuum. So this is direct evidence of that.
What are kind of the...
So this is by far like the coolest thing ever. The James Webb Telescope cost $10 billion to get anything even remote to this kind of visual on the deep the deep universe that we've never really experienced before. And the fact that we're able to experience this now in a very interesting and in this kind of immersed way, I don't think you can truly understand without experiencing it yourself. I have let my family's kids, my brother's kids, play with the VR, and I was showing them really boring stuff, the pyramids, the Great Wall of China. My mom's like, isn't that boring for them? And I've never seen them have so much fun in their life watching those videos, right? And it's really cool because basically Mark Zuckerberg has partnered with some of the space launches so we can watch the space launches in the VR space. Now you're probably like, oh, well, this is all boring to me. This is that. But this is going to be the future. I'm going to explain to you why, because they kind of highlight some of this right toward the end here. Just take a quick listen, because I thought this was very prevalent when he asks this question.
Right. What do you think of this whole experience?
It's clearly ready for prime time. We have visual data on the universe, and probably in other sciences, they have enough information about the structure of cells that any place you hadn't gone before because you couldn't, or you just would read about it, if you get to go inside, I don't see why that wouldn't be the next best thing.
I love that response because it's how I felt about everything I do in the VR space, whether it's interacting with people, playing card games, getting involved with Population 1, which is basically the Fortnite version of VR, which is just astounding. I feel like I've gotten back into shape because of how much I play VR. So the passion and love I've become for this platform has become very pronounced, to the point where I should probably just be buying Facebook back, because I don't know how you do not try this and see the future potential, because he does mention that they're letting surgeons use this stuff to kind of get into a virtual space to try and practice with surgery and surgical equipment stuff. Like, it's just very profound to me, and I thought this was really prevalent to share. So I'm going to leave the Exploring the Cosmos in VR in the description below if you guys are as big as nerd as I am, because I love Neil deGrasse Tyson, and I thought Mark Zuckerberg coming on just absolutely blew my mind. So at this point, I kind of want to pass the question off to you from an optics perspective. How do you think Facebook's going to evolve in the next 3 to 5 years? If I had to pick Google or Facebook, at this point it's hard to wrap my head around, because I love Google so much because of the search mode of, if we have to learn something, we go to Google. But I think the future of the way we're going to experience the internet and NFTs and crypto, and the way all this is going to merge together, will be in some form or another of the metaverse. And so far, this is the closest thing with these virtual reality headsets that anybody's ever experienced. And again, it's an optics-based thing, because I've always said, guys, if people can't change the way they think about a stock, this is purely a voting machine. Stock prices are complete fugazi, and because I can love underlying fundamental businesses doesn't mean I love their stocks. I feel like Facebook's current biggest hurdle is to kind of get over that negativity and see if they can actually prove back to decent revenue growth once we get through this recessionary period, which opens up the door of opportunity to you. If you think Facebook has any potential into the future and that their platforms are not dying, I'm going to tell you this is probably the buying opportunity of a lifetime. But that is up to your perspective, and that was truly just my perspective. So I pass that question again off to you. Let me know what you think. Stay cool, stay awesome, and as always, I look forward to catching you in the next one.